Unlike Disney, where you can take your bags and loose articles on almost every single ride at Walt Disney World, Universal Orlando has very strict rules on taking bags on specific rides, and there are many rides at both Universal Studios Florida and Islands of Adventure where you are not allowed to bring bags onto the ride. Some rides where you are allowed to bring no loose articles at all, and you must place everything in a locker prior to getting on the ride. But how do these locker policies work? Let's discuss all of Universal Orlando's locker policies. So for the remainder of this video, I'm first going to talk about which rides at Universal Orlando require you to use lockers before going into the general rules for Universal's lockers. And finally concluding with rides that are exceptions to those general rules and going into what those ride-specific rules are. So first of all, what rides at both parks in Universal Orlando require you to use lockers? At Universal Studios, the rides that require you to use lockers are Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit, Men in Black Alien Attack, Revenge of the Mummy, and Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts. At Universal's Islands of Adventure, the rides that require you to use a locker are Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, The Incredible Hulk Coaster, and the Jurassic World Velocicoaster. Now let's get into the general rules for Universal Orlando lockers. At rides where lockers are required, Universal provides a small locker complimentary for the length of time that you need it for the ride. Universal builds in enough time for however long the current wait is for that individual ride and more than enough of a cushion to get back and get your stuff. How you access the locker is with your park ticket, and your park ticket is the only loose article that is allowed on every single ride. Before you go on a ride, you will go to the locker station for that ride, scan your park ticket, and it will tell you which locker has been given to you, and that locker will unlock. You then can put all of your items into that locker except your park ticket. Small lockers are complimentary, but there are also larger lockers that are available for purchase. Personally, it's my recommendation to try and limit the amount of stuff that you bring to Universal Orlando to what can fit in one of these lockers. Generally, an average-sized backpack or a Loungefly can fit in one of these lockers. And keep in mind, if you are traveling with a group of people, each of you gets a complimentary locker, so you can use multiple for your group each time you go on a ride. There are also other rides at Universal Orlando where Universal does not provide complimentary lockers, but there are lockers available for purchase, those being the water rides. Jurassic Park River Adventure, Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls, and Popeye and Bluto's Bilge Rat Barges. This is also in addition to all-day lockers which are available to purchase at the entrances of both theme parks, as well as Universal's Volcano Bay. Just for reference, these are the dimensions on the screen right now of a locker that is provided complimentary at all of the rides that Universal requires you to use a locker at. And these are the dimensions for the larger lockers that are available for purchase. Use this for planning, and again, I would recommend trying to avoid, if you can, bringing anything that would require you to use a large locker. Now, on for some more specific locker policies. What items does Universal allow you to bring on rides, and what items does Universal not allow you to bring on these rides? So here are the policies for all of the rides that Universal requires you to use lockers at, with the exception of Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit, Velocicoaster, and the Incredible Hulk Coaster. Those rides have specific rules which I will get to at the end of the video. These are the policies for every other ride that requires you to use lockers. Or more specifically, Revenge of the Mummy, Men in Black Alien Attack, Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts, Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, and lastly, Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. For all of those rides, Universal requires you to put large items and bags into lockers before you enter the line for any one of those rides. However, generally speaking, they will allow you to bring smaller items, the type of item that can fit in a pocket, such as a wallet or a phone, in the line with you and onto the ride, so long as it remains secure during the duration of the actual ride. With the lockers really just being to make sure that you do not have large bags with you while you are in the line or on the ride, as there simply is nowhere on these attractions for you to keep those items. Universal will keep you from getting in the line for these attractions if you have any of these items. For all of these attractions, the lockers are located just next to the entrances of the ride, so you don't have to go that far in order to place your item somewhere. For Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, however, if the ride is using the extended queue in the Lost Continent area of the park, do know that you can access the lockers once you enter the Wizarding World of Harry Potter part of the queue line. You do not need to access the lockers before you get into the queue if it is extending that far. You will have access to the lockers partway through the line. Theoretically speaking, if the line is short enough to only be within the Wizarding World of Harry Potter section of the park, however, it is located at the entrance of the attraction, just not when the line extends outside of this section of the park. Now let us move on to ride-specific policies for Universal Orlando's major outdoor roller coasters, which have more strict locker policies than the rest of the attractions which they require the use of lockers at. Those being Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit, the Incredible Hulk Coaster, and Jurassic World Velocicoaster, to protect riders as well as other guests at the theme parks as these attractions pass over guest pathways. Universal bans all loose articles on these attractions. The only item that you are allowed to have with you is your park ticket and potentially a lanyard if you are keeping your park ticket within a lanyard. Everything else must be stowed in a ride locker. This includes your phone, your wallet, hats, sunglasses, and any other loose articles you might be carrying with you. Universal is strict with this policy, and there are metal detectors to enforce it. For 2 of these rides, the lockers are located outside of the queue line, meaning you will have to part with all of your loose articles before getting in the line for an attraction. That being the case for Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit and the Incredible Hulk Coaster. You must place all of your loose articles into a locker before you enter the line for the ride. If you attempt to enter the ride with a loose article, they will force you to go back and place it in a locker. Once again, there are metal detectors and they do enforce this rule. For Velocicoaster, the rules work slightly differently. You can bring all of your loose articles into the line for the ride with you because the lockers are actually located partway through the line. Once you reach that point, however, you will have to part with all of your loose articles with the exception of your park ticket. But do not worry, as Universal utilizes double-sided lockers for this attraction, meaning you do not need to backtrack to the lockers in order to retrieve your stuff. When you are leaving the ride, you will pass the other side of the lockers and be able to retrieve your stuff without re-entering the line for the ride. You just simply scan your park ticket and unlock your locker just like you would at any other attraction. Again, keep in mind that these locker rules are really here to protect guests. Universal has some intense attractions, and if you take loose articles on them, it can be dangerous. It's just helpful to know the rules before you visit so that you can hopefully not bring anything that won't fit within the small lockers that you are given complimentary. And once you get the hang of it, Universal's locker system is really not that complicated.